This is our Fondless farewell to the worst human being ever to occupy the Oval Office. He's had some stiff competition, but we'll get to that later. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, I think CNN's Chris Wallace summed up Biden's farewell speech best last night. He said, the word that everybody is using to describe tonight is bittersweet. It's just bitter. Scott, I actually love this part because I try not to hate. I really do. But this man, I almost can't help it. But Biden got pushed out of prime time in half the country for, get this, a long list of can't-miss Democratic Party all-stars like Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, childhood friends of Kamala Harris, Stacey Johnson Batiste, and Doris Johnson. Can't miss them. Let's see. We've got Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin, Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, and Delaware Senator Chris Coons. And that is before we got to the can't-miss speeches by Dr. Jill Biden and, of course, Biden's daughter, with whom he apparently used to shower, Ashley. And so Biden himself didn't take the stage until 11:26 p.m. Eastern time.
Wow. By
which point, of course, half the country has tuned out, and even on the West Coast, they're going, 9:30? Really? Scott, this was all an accident, surely.
Well, for the people in the hall, like when you go to an event like that, you know, it's New Year's Eve hours. You know, you've been to political conventions, and so it's nothing for them, and they'll be up as late as it takes. However, you're right. For anybody who might care to tune in live, that's pushing it pretty far back. I mean, it was supposed to be a great celebration of a triumphant presidency, one of the best by all accounts, according to that side of the aisle, that's ever been. Like this is considered to be just a huge triumphant presidency, and we're going to bid a fond farewell and also pay tribute to this guy who was gracious enough, like General George Washington, whose name was dropped several times in news reports I read this week, of being willing to step down before he had to. Yeah.
Virtually indistinguishable.
And yes, that's right.
I remember when Nancy Pelosi, much younger, she was in her 30s, went to George Washington's office and said, listen, bud, two terms and you're out of here.
You know, and every time Joe Biden cracks a smile, I'm like, I think I recognize those teeth. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it seems pretty clear that they were trying to do the polite thing and pay tribute to this guy, but also they didn't want it cluttering up prime time. Interesting that I heard on this morning, I was taking a shower and listening to NPR, and they said tonight they'll be looking to the future with speeches by former First Lady Michelle Obama and former President Barack Obama. I'm like, yeah, there's looking to the future for you. To the now gray-haired President Obama will be giving a speech. Yeah, I think they've been making a very conscious effort to try to push the idea that this is a more youthful party, although not all those people you listed are fit in that category, but certainly most people standing next to Joe Biden look young. And they really wanted to sell, you know, the what is she, mid-50s or late 50s, Kamala Harris as being
59 or 60 now, yeah.
Yeah, so she's the new generation. It's funny, like the young people are now about my age, which it's just phenomenal to think of. And I don't know if you did this on purpose, Steve, but at the beginning, it almost sounded like you said that Joe Biden bid us a Fondless farewell. Did you say that intentionally?
Oh, nicely played.
No, seriously, I thought you said that.
No, I said our Fondless farewell.
Oh, yes. Anyway, yeah, I watched a little bit of the president's speech, and it was kind of sad in a sense to see a guy who was trying to convince you that he did this of his own will and accord, but was clearly muscled aside by people who were more concerned with the party than they were by the person, all the while with the other side of their mouth saying that this is a historic figure who's done things that no president has ever done and should be remembered along with FDR and JFK.
Yeah, Bill, Scott mentioned Biden's legacy a couple of times. I want to get into this with you just a little bit. His economic record includes, but is not limited to, the worst bout of inflation in almost 50 years, a seemingly permanent jobs recession, and an explosion of spending, debt, and regulation that I think is meant to hobble this country for generations. And his foreign policy of coddling authoritarians and dictators while running roughshod over our allies has unleashed war from Eastern Europe through the Middle East to the Red Sea, and the Pacific isn't looking so hot either. I can't believe they let him speak at all. Can you?
Well, there's a bunch of things to say about this. First of all, this idea that he's retiring out of patriotism like Cincinnatus, I mean, Scrantonatus, I guess we'll call him from now on. And I think the most salient point here is that they're not trotting out somebody like Ted Kennedy for the Lifetime Achievement Award. He is the sitting president of the United States of America. He's the sitting president. And they're giving him the 11:30, post Letterman slot. I mean, Scott says that, and the excitement in the room and so on, but the excitement in the room definitely goes down. I was at a speaking event once where I was supposed to go on at 8:30, and I didn't go out until 11:15. And I remember sitting there watching that room just cool down, and I just said, I got to come out of the gate with defibrillators just to wake people. They were literally nodding off into their drinks, So they're clearly ashamed of him. I remember looking at election betting odds, which I have a lot more confidence in than polls. And after the debate with Donald Trump was up over Joe Biden by 60 points, 60 points. They are doing their very best to erase Joe Biden from the public memory. We haven't heard essentially anything from him until the convention, since Harris was anointed. I don't expect we'll hear from him again until the inauguration day or something like that. And you just have to ask yourself, Steve, if these people are, this is the obvious question here and the entire point of the show. If they're so proud of the Biden presidency, why are they sweeping him under the rug like this? This is the basic contradiction of progressive politics. When Kamala Harris was asked, if she was the most liberal member of the Senate, would she bring those policies to the White House? She wouldn't admit to being the most liberal member of the Senate. They sell one thing and they advertise something else. And I'm not surprised. I am a little angry at the this idea that he sacrificed himself for the good of the country when everybody knows that he had to be talked into this over the period of 4 or 5 weeks. And just on our backstage show, you were talking about how when he talked, even though he's reading from a teleprompter, he had that dead-eyed look.
Oh, yeah.
And and I think I referred to him as Polar Express Biden. That just this there's just nothing there, and good riddance. So we'll see what happens in November.
Yeah. On the intro to this segment, I called him the worst human being to occupy the White House. I don't think he's the worst president. You still got James Buchanan, kind of sleptwalked into the Civil War. You got Woodrow Wilson, who was just an actual fascist who did everything he could to undermine the Constitution. You got LBJ. I'd say all those guys are probably worse. But as far as the worst human being, you don't have to look any further than his own family, the way he punches down at his own constituents, accuses half of his fellow Americans of the most horrible things. The fact that he's never worked in the private sector and is somehow worth more than $10 million is just corrupt on the absolute face of it. I think he actually might be the worst human being to occupy the Oval Office, or serve as president, I should say, since the Oval Office itself is a fairly recent innovation. I just can't wait to get rid of this guy. I just never thought I'd see the Democrats as eager as I am. That's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.